Hello, and welcome to the August 2026 edition of Behind the Orchestra. My name is Richard, and I'm the creator of the Temporal Orchestra. The Temporal Orchestra is an AI-assisted jazz project inspired by every decade from the 1920s to the 1980s. AI helps me create the music, but every release still involves countless creative decisions, from selecting tracks and building albums to artwork, promotion, and everything that happens after a song is released. This isn't just a place where I release music, it's also a place where I'd like to share what happens behind the scenes, answer your questions, and build this project together with the community. Every month I'll publish a new episode, sharing the latest releases, streaming statistics, interesting discoveries, and one story from behind the scenes. Between those monthly episodes, I'll also publish YouTube shorts, covering smaller topics, updates, or questions that deserve a closer look. When I started the Temporal Orchestra, I hoped it might become a small source of additional income, but somewhere along the way, it became much more than that. Today, it's a creative project I'm genuinely passionate about. If that sounds interesting, I'd love for you to come along for the journey. Alright then, let me tell you how it all started. Back in May 2025, I released the first two albums on this channel. Both were instrumental jazz albums, and to be honest, not much happened. Hardly anyone seemed to notice they were there. I waited for 2 months with very little result, but instead of giving up, I doubled down. I started exploring different decades, different languages, different vocal styles, and I released more instrumental albums as well. I wasn't trying to flood the streaming platforms, but that's pretty much what I ended up doing. I needed data. I wanted to find out what people genuinely enjoyed listening to. Looking back though, I definitely went overboard. Some of the decisions I made turned out to be good ones. Others, not so much. One of those decisions eventually got me into trouble, but that's a story I'll probably tell in next month's edition of Behind the Orchestra. By the way, this series isn't about telling you what you should do. I'm simply sharing my own journey, the choices I made, the lessons I learned, and sometimes the mistakes I made along the way. As my catalog grew, the data slowly started coming in. At first, my music was getting a few listeners here and there, and over time, it slowly gained traction. The niche I'd chosen was clearly working, although on a modest scale. But then, one particular track suddenly started attracting a lot more attention than the others. It's the track you're listening to in the background right now, Gatsby's Forgotten Melody. At first, I had no idea why. I just noticed that people were suddenly streaming it on platforms like Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music. I got more streams on all platforms for that particular track, and it didn't seem to make sense. So I decided to do a little research. That's when I discovered something I hadn't expected at all. It turned out that Gatsby's Forgotten Melody wasn't taking off on the streaming platforms first. It had quietly become popular as background music for short-form videos. During the making of this video, Gatsby's Forgotten Melody has been used as the background music in over 21,000 Instagram Reels, nearly 15,000 Facebook Reels, and almost 12,000 TikTok videos. And the numbers are still growing. What I think happened is that people heard the song in those videos, looked it up on their favorite streaming platform, and then started exploring the rest of the catalog as well. Even the very first album I released benefited from that unexpected attention. Whatever the exact path was, that was the moment I realized the Temporal Orchestra had found its audience. So that's how it all started. Now, let's have a look at how things went on Spotify last month. Overall, I'm really happy with these numbers. Compared to the previous month, almost every metric moved in the right direction. Monthly active listeners increased by almost 8%. Streams were up by 7.5%. Followers also continued to grow steadily. Perhaps the biggest surprise for me was the number of saves, which increased by more than 50%. What I like most is that the growth isn't coming from one viral moment anymore. The numbers are becoming much more consistent, and that's exactly what I'm hoping for in the long run. Building an audience takes time, but month after month, things are moving in the right direction. Now, let's take a quick look at my previous release. On July 4th, 2026, I released the Gatsby Sessions, Volume 1. After the unexpected success of Gatsby's Forgotten Melody, I started asking myself an obvious question. Was that song simply a one-time success, or were people genuinely interested in that particular style of music? I'd already experimented with similar material before, with releases like Roaring Revival and later Prohibition Run. But this time, I decided to go back to the basics. I wanted to create a collection of songs that captured the same atmosphere people seem to enjoy so much. I'm not going to pretend there wasn't a strategic reason behind it. Of course, I hope people would connect with this music in the same way they connected with Gatsby's Forgotten Melody. The only way to find out was to release it and see what happened. Fortunately, the response has been very encouraging so far. Several tracks have already found an audience, and that's given me the confidence to continue exploring this musical direction. Whether another track will ever reach the same level as Gatsby's Forgotten Melody, I honestly don't know. But that's part of the fun. Every new release is another experiment and another opportunity to learn something new. I know that sounds corny, but it's true. Before we wrap things up, there's one more thing I'd like to share with you, my royalty report. Since this is the very first episode of Behind the Orchestra, I thought it would be interesting to show the journey from the very beginning. One thing that's important to understand is that these aren't the royalties generated during those months. Streaming services report their numbers weeks or sometimes even months later, and those royalties are then paid to my music distributors. So what you're looking at here is the amount I actually received during each reporting month. As you can see, it definitely wasn't an overnight success. The first payments were tiny, but over time they gradually became more meaningful. To me, that's one of the most rewarding parts of this entire project. Not because of the money itself, but because it shows that more and more people are discovering the music. These royalties don't make me rich, but they do cover the cost of creating new music, and that means the Temporal Orchestra is able to support itself. For me, that's already a huge milestone. Starting with next month's episode, I'll keep this section much shorter. From then on, I'll simply show the royalties I received during the previous month, together with anything interesting that stood out. Well, that's it for this first month's episode of Behind the Orchestra. I hope you enjoyed coming along for the journey. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Every interaction really helps this channel reach more people. Before you go, here's a little challenge. Hidden throughout this episode are 4 individual words. Put them together to reveal this month's tagline and leave your answer in the comments. The first person to get it right will receive a shout out in next month's episode of Behind the Orchestra. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.